What if everything you think you control is actually an illusion? For a moment, consider this. The opinions of others, the weather, the traffic on your way to work, none of these are truly within your power. Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." This simple yet profound idea lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. It teaches us that while the external world is unpredictable and uncontrollable, our internal world, our thoughts, reactions, and choices, is ours to command. In this video, we'll explore why the Stoics believed that nothing outside of ourselves is truly under our control, and how embracing this perspective can transform the way we navigate life's challenges. Whether you're dealing with stress, uncertainty, or setbacks, understanding this ancient wisdom can offer clarity and resilience in a world that often feels chaotic. Let's begin this journey into Stoic thought together and uncover how it can reshape the way you perceive and respond to the events around you. Stoics divide the world into two distinct categories: what we control and what we don't. This fundamental idea, known as the Dichotomy of Control, serves as the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. At its core, it's a simple yet profound reminder that our power lies only in what we can influence: our thoughts, actions, and responses, while everything else, from the weather to the opinions of others, exists outside our sphere of control. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential thinkers, articulated this principle with striking clarity. He said, "Some things are within our power while others are not." Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. This isn't just a philosophical observation, it's a practical tool for navigating life's uncertainties. Take, for instance, a common workplace scenario. Imagine a colleague takes credit for your idea during a meeting. It's frustrating, even infuriating, but according to the dichotomy of control, their actions are beyond your influence. What is within your control is how you respond, whether you confront them, let it go, or use it as an opportunity to refine your communication skills. By focusing on what you can manage, your reaction, you reclaim your power and reduce unnecessary stress. This principle doesn't just apply to big conflicts, it's equally relevant in everyday moments. Traffic jams, delays, or even a friend canceling plans, these are all events we can't control. But our mindset, that's entirely up to us. So, here's a question to consider. What in your life have you been trying to control that isn't yours to manage? Recognizing this distinction can be the first step toward greater peace and resilience. Think about how many times you've tried to map out every detail of your life, convinced that if you just plan enough or work hard enough, you'll get the outcome you want. Maybe you've checked your investments obsessively, hoping to predict the next market shift, or spent hours crafting the perfect social media post, certain it'll go viral. These are just a few examples of the illusion of control, a belief that we have far more power over outcomes than we actually do. The Stoics recognized this tendency centuries ago, and they saw it as a root cause of stress and frustration. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it bluntly when he said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." He was pointing out how futile it is to try to control what's inherently uncontrollable, whether it's the stock market, other people's opinions, or even the weather. This belief in control can feel empowering in the moment, but it often leads to unnecessary anxiety. Think about it. How much time do we spend worrying about things we can't change? The Stoic approach is to focus instead on what we can control: our thoughts, our actions, and our responses. By letting go of the illusion of control, we free ourselves from the weight of trying to manage the unpredictable. Imagine how much lighter life would feel if you stopped obsessing over things you can't influence and instead channeled that energy into what truly matters. So, where in your life are you holding onto false control? Is it in your career, your relationships, or even your daily routines? Take a moment to reflect on this. Recognizing these patterns isn't about giving up. It's about redirecting your focus toward what you can genuinely shape. When you learn to distinguish between what's in your power and what isn't, you'll find a deeper sense of peace and clarity, a core principle of Stoic wisdom that still resonates today. Here's a professional yet warm and engaging passage based on the provided outline segment. One of the most profound insights Stoicism offers is the idea that control is less about what happens to us and more about how we perceive it. Think about it, the same event can devastate one person while leaving another completely unfazed. Why is that? It's all in the interpretation. The Stoics believed that while we can't always control external events, we have absolute power over how we choose to see them. Marcus Aurelius put it beautifully when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Take, for example, a common scenario, losing a job. For one person, it might feel like the end of the world, a crushing blow to their identity and security. Yet, for another, it could be an opportunity to explore new paths, learn new skills, or even pursue a long-held passion. The event itself didn't change. What changed was the lens through which it was viewed. This is the essence of Stoic wisdom, shifting our focus from trying to control the uncontrollable to mastering our internal responses. So, here's a question to reflect on. How might you reframe a recent challenge in your own life? Instead of seeing it as a setback, could you view it as a chance to grow, adapt, or even discover something new about yourself? The power of perspective isn't just a philosophical idea. It's a practical tool that can transform how you navigate life's ups and downs. By focusing on perception, the Stoics remind us that true control lies not in changing the world around us, but in reshaping the way we engage with it. It's a subtle yet profound shift that can make all the difference. What do you gain by fighting what you can't change? It's a question worth asking, especially when we're faced with situations that feel unfair or beyond our control. At its core, Stoicism teaches us that acceptance is not a surrender, it's a form of power. When we resist what we cannot change, we drain our energy, waste our time, and amplify our frustration. But when we accept reality as it is, we free ourselves to focus on what we can influence. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: some things are in our control and others are not. He goes on to explain that peace of mind comes from recognizing what's beyond our power and choosing not to struggle against it. Think about that for a moment. How often do we exhaust ourselves trying to force an outcome that simply isn't ours to decide? Let's take a practical example. Imagine you're at the airport, ready to board a long-awaited flight, only to hear the announcement that it's been cancelled due to weather. You could spend hours arguing with the airline staff, cursing the skies, or spiraling into frustration. But the truth is, none of that will change the fact that the plane isn't taking off. Instead, Stoicism invites you to accept the situation, adapt, and focus on what's within your control. Maybe rebooking your ticket, finding a comfortable spot to wait, or using the unexpected downtime to catch up on work or rest. This isn't about being passive or indifferent. Acceptance is an active choice, a way of redirecting your energy toward what truly matters. It's about recognizing that some things are simply inevitable, like delays, setbacks, or even losses, and choosing not to let them define your inner state. So, what are you resisting in your own life right now? Is it a situation at work, a strained relationship, or even an aspect of yourself you wish were different? Take a moment to reflect. Could acceptance, rather than resistance, be the key to moving forward with clarity and calm? Stoicism reminds us that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can control how we respond. And that, in itself, is a profound source of strength. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm, rain pouring down, winds raging, yet remaining completely still. Not because the storm isn't powerful, but because you've learned to detach yourself from its chaos. This is the essence of what the Stoics called detachment. It's not about ignoring the world around you or suppressing your emotions. It's about creating a mental space where you can observe events without being consumed by them. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. In other words, it's not the events themselves that overwhelm us, but how we choose to react to them. Think about a time when you faced a crisis, maybe a sudden job loss, a heated argument, or even a global event that disrupted your life. The initial wave of panic or frustration might have felt inescapable. But what if, in that moment, you could step back? What if you could see the situation not as something happening to you, but as something happening around you? That shift in perspective is the power of detachment. It allows you to respond with clarity rather than react with emotion. It's not about apathy, it's about control over your inner state. Consider this example. Two people are stuck in the same traffic jam. One spends the entire time honking, cursing, and growing more agitated by the minute. The other uses the time to listen to a podcast, reflect on their day, or simply breathe deeply. Both are in the same situation, but their experiences are worlds apart. The difference: detachment. One is consumed by the external circumstance, while the other remains anchored in their own inner calm. So, what could detachment look like in your life? Maybe it's staying composed when someone criticizes you at work, or not letting a social media comment ruin your day. Maybe it's recognizing that while you can't control the world, you can control how you engage with it. The practice of detachment isn't about becoming emotionless, it's about becoming resilient. It's about choosing where to focus your energy rather than letting external forces dictate your state of mind. What might you gain by cultivating this skill? Perhaps it's a deeper sense of peace or the ability to navigate challenges with grace. Maybe it's the freedom to live more intentionally rather than being swept along by the currents of life. The key is to start small. Notice when you're getting caught up in a situation and ask yourself, is this worth my peace? By practicing detachment, you're not just surviving life's storms, you're learning to thrive within them. If we zoom in on the Stoic perspective, we find a powerful truth. The only thing we truly have control over is this very moment. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. This simple yet profound idea underscores the Stoic emphasis on mindfulness and presence. By focusing on the here and now, we can let go of the anxiety that comes from dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. Think about it, the past is already behind us and the future hasn't happened yet. The only space where we can act, think, and truly live is in the present. So how can we put this into practice? One simple yet effective way is through mindful breathing. When stress or overwhelm creeps in, pause for a moment. Close your eyes if you can and take a few deep breaths. Feel the air entering your lungs, notice the rise and fall of your chest, and bring your attention back to this single act of breathing. It's a small but powerful way to anchor yourself in the present. The Stoics believed that by mastering our attention in moments like these, we can regain a sense of calm and clarity, even in the midst of chaos. Now take a moment to reflect. How often are you truly present in your daily life? Are you fully engaged in conversations, or is your mind wandering to your to-do list? Are you savoring your morning coffee, or are you already mentally preparing for the next task? Becoming more aware of these moments can be a game changer. It's not about eliminating all distractions, that's nearly impossible, but rather about recognizing when your focus has drifted and gently guiding it back to the present. This practice, rooted in Stoic philosophy, can help us cultivate a deeper sense of control over our inner world, even when the outer world feels chaotic. Think about the last time you felt weighed down by worry. Maybe it was about a meeting at work, a health concern, or even something as unpredictable as the weather. Worrying is something we all do, often without even realizing it. But here's the thing, the Stoics saw worry as a complete waste of mental energy. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it bluntly when he said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And isn't that the truth? So much of what we worry about never actually happens, yet we let it drain us emotionally and mentally. Let's take something simple like planning an outdoor event. You've put in the effort, invited friends, and then you start worrying about whether it's going to rain. But here's the question, can you control the weather? Of course not, so why spend your energy fretting over it? The Stoics would argue that this kind of worry is not only pointless but also counterproductive. It pulls you away from focusing on what you can actually influence, like having a backup plan or simply deciding to enjoy the day, rain or shine. Now take a moment to reflect. What's something you've been worrying about recently? Is it truly within your control, or are you spending energy on something you can't change? The Stoics believed that identifying what's beyond your control is the first step toward freeing yourself from unnecessary anxiety. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you reclaim your mental energy for what truly matters. So the next time you catch yourself spiraling into worry, pause and ask, is this something I can actually do anything about? If the answer is no, let it go. Your peace of mind is worth far more than the illusion of control. Resilience is not just a buzzword, it's a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, a virtue that empowers us to face life's inevitable challenges with strength and grace. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that while we can't control external events, we can always choose our response to them. Resilience is about cultivating that inner fortitude, the ability to stand firm in the face of adversity without being crushed by it. Take, for example, the experience of losing a job. It's a situation many of us have faced, and it can feel like a devastating blow, not just financially, but emotionally. A Stoic approach doesn't deny the difficulty of the moment, but it shifts the focus. Instead of dwelling on what's been lost, resilience helps us ask, what can I learn from this? How can I grow stronger from this experience? It's about seeing setbacks not as roadblocks, but as opportunities to reassess, adapt, and move forward. Think about your own life for a moment. Have there been times when you faced a challenge that felt insurmountable, but you found a way to push through? That's resilience in action. It's not about being immune to pain or hardship. It's about finding the strength to keep going, even when the path ahead is unclear. The Stoics believed that resilience isn't just a trait we're born with. It's a skill we can develop through practice and reflection. By embracing life's uncertainties and learning to endure with courage, we become better equipped to handle whatever comes our way. We often hear that planning is the key to success, but here's the hard truth. No matter how carefully we map things out, life has a way of throwing curveballs. The Stoics knew this better than anyone. They didn't dismiss planning outright. After all, it's a tool to help us navigate life, but they also recognized its limits. Planning is only as good as our ability to adapt when things don't go as expected. That's where flexibility comes in. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. It's a reminder that while we can't control what happens, we can control how we respond. Think about it. How often have you meticulously planned something only to have it derailed by something completely out of your hands? Maybe it was a sudden shift in a work project, a last-minute cancellation, or even something as simple as unexpected traffic. These moments test our ability to adapt, and that's where Stoic philosophy offers a practical solution. Focus less on trying to control the uncontrollable and more on building resilience in the face of change. So here's a question to consider. When life throws you off course, do you double down on trying to force things back on track, or do you pivot and find a new way forward? The Stoics would argue that the latter is not only wiser but also far less exhausting. It's about embracing the unpredictability of life rather than wrestling with it. When the Stoics talk about external events, they're referring to everything outside the realm of our own thoughts and actions, things like the weather, other people's opinions, or unexpected changes in life. These events, according to Stoic philosophy, are inherently neutral. They don't carry any built-in meaning or value. It's we who assign significance to them. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: "It is not the things themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about these things." In other words, it's not the event that shapes our experience, it's how we choose to interpret it. Take something as simple as a rainy day. For someone who planned an outdoor picnic, the rain might seem like a disaster. But for a farmer in need of water for their crops, that same rain could be a blessing. The event itself, the rain, is neither good nor bad. It's our perspective that colors it. This is a powerful idea because it shifts the focus from trying to control the uncontrollable to managing how we respond to it. Stoics argue that by recognizing the neutrality of external events, we can free ourselves from unnecessary suffering and approach life with greater clarity and calm. So, what does this mean for us in practice? It invites us to pause and reflect on how we interpret the events in our own lives. When something happens, whether it's a setback at work, a comment from a friend, or even a global crisis, are we quick to label it as good or bad? Or can we step back and see it for what it truly is? An external event, neutral in itself, waiting for us to give it meaning. This shift in perspective doesn't mean ignoring our emotions or pretending challenges don't exist. Instead, it's about cultivating a mindset that allows us to respond rather than react, to choose our judgments wisely rather than being swept away by them. Consider this: how often do you find yourself stressed or upset by things that are ultimately outside your control? And what might change if you started seeing those events as inherently neutral, waiting for you to shape their meaning? This is the essence of the Stoic approach, recognizing that while we can't always control what happens to us, we always have the power to decide how we'll respond. It's a subtle but transformative way of engaging with the world, one that can help us navigate life's uncertainties with greater resilience and peace. Picture this: you're stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. The clock is ticking and frustration starts to bubble up. But here's the thing: your emotions aren't caused by the traffic itself. They're a reaction to your desire to control something that's entirely out of your hands. This is where Stoic wisdom shines. Emotions, especially the turbulent ones, often stem from our futile attempts to control the uncontrollable. The Stoics teach us that instead of fighting the external world, we should focus on mastering our internal responses. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it plainly: any person capable of angering you becomes your master. Think about that for a moment. When we let anger or frustration take over, we're essentially handing over control to external circumstances or to other people. But what if we could shift our focus? What if we could train ourselves to respond with calmness and clarity, no matter what life throws at us? Take criticism, for example. It's easy to feel defensive or hurt when someone points out a flaw, but the Stoic approach invites us to pause and ask, is this criticism within my control? If it's valid, I can learn from it. If it's not, I can let it go. Either way, my emotional reaction is a choice, not an inevitability. This is emotional regulation in action, redirecting our energy toward what we can control rather than being swept away by what we can't. So here's a question for you. How do you usually respond when you're faced with something beyond your control? Do you feel the rush of frustration, or do you take a step back and breathe? The Stoics remind us that while we can't always change the circumstances, we can always change how we respond to them. It's not about suppressing emotions, but about understanding their source and choosing a wiser path forward. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go. Over time, the weight starts to weigh you down, making every step feel more burdensome than the last. Now, what if you could set that backpack down? What if you could walk freely, unencumbered by the extra weight? This is the essence of letting go, a practice the Stoics believed was essential for true freedom. Seneca once said, "You are weighed down, you are a burden to yourself, relieve yourself of this load." His words remind us that holding onto things, whether they're grudges, fears, or desires, only ties us down. But when we release them, we create space for peace and clarity. Let's take a practical example: holding a grudge. Maybe someone wronged you in the past, and every time you think about it, you feel that familiar anger bubbling up. It's not just emotional, it's exhausting. The Stoics would argue that by clinging to that resentment, you're giving that person power over your well-being. But what if you chose to let it go, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace? It's not about condoning their actions, it's about freeing yourself from the weight of that anger. So, what's in your backpack? What are you carrying that's keeping you from moving forward? It might be a grudge, a fear of failure, or even an unattainable expectation. The act of letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop allowing those things to control you. It's a shift in perspective, a conscious choice to prioritize your inner freedom over external circumstances. And here's the beautiful part: when you let go, you're not losing anything. You're gaining lightness, clarity, and the ability to live more fully in the present moment. Think about the last time something in your life shifted unexpectedly, maybe a job loss, a move, or even a relationship ending. In those moments, it's easy to feel like the ground beneath you is crumbling. But here's the thing: that feeling of instability isn't the exception, it's the rule. Stoicism teaches us that nothing in life is permanent, not even the illusion of control we often cling to. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most famous practitioners, put it this way: "Everything is fleeting, both that which remembers and that which is remembered." In other words, everything, including us, is in constant motion. Life is a river, always flowing, never stagnant. This insight isn't meant to make us fearful or pessimistic. Instead, it's an invitation to cultivate acceptance and adaptability. When we recognize the impermanence of everything, our circumstances, our relationships, even our own lives, we stop wasting energy trying to grasp what can't be held. Instead, we learn to flow with the current, adjusting as needed. Take, for example, a sudden career change. Maybe you've been laid off, or perhaps an opportunity you've worked toward slips through your fingers. It's easy to feel defeated, to scramble for a sense of control. But what if instead you saw this as a chance to recalibrate? What if you viewed it as a reminder that even our best-laid plans are subject to change? This doesn't mean you shouldn't strive or set goals. It simply means holding them lightly, knowing they might shift or dissolve entirely. So pause for a moment and ask yourself this: what are you clinging to that might be temporary? Is it a relationship, a possession, or even a version of yourself you're trying to maintain? Recognizing the impermanence of these things doesn't devalue them. It allows you to appreciate them fully, right here, right now, without the weight of expecting them to last forever. This is the heart of Stoic wisdom, not to resist life's changes, but to embrace them as part of the natural order. One of the most profound lessons Stoicism teaches us is the value of humility. It might seem counterintuitive at first. After all, humility is often associated with weakness or self-doubt. But for the Stoics, humility is a cornerstone of strength and wisdom. It's about recognizing our limits, understanding that we don't have all the answers, and accepting that much of life is beyond our control. This isn't a defeatist mindset, it's a liberating one. By embracing humility, we free ourselves from the exhausting pursuit of trying to manage the unmanageable. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: "It is impossible to learn that which one thinks one already knows." In other words, true growth begins with the acknowledgement that we don't have everything figured out. Humility opens the door to learning, adaptability, and resilience. It allows us to see the world and ourselves with clear eyes, unclouded by ego or arrogance. Think about it. When we stop pretending we can control every outcome, we become more open to the guidance and support of others. Asking for help, for example, isn't a sign of failure, it's a testament to our willingness to grow. So, where in your life might humility be calling you? Is there a situation where you've been holding on too tightly, trying to force a result that simply isn't yours to dictate? Maybe it's a project at work where you refuse to delegate, or a relationship where you're trying to fix someone else. Practicing humility doesn't mean giving up. It means letting go of the illusion that you're the sole architect of every outcome. It's about finding strength in surrender, wisdom in acceptance, and peace in the knowledge that you're doing your best even when things don't go as planned. This is the Stoic path, not to control life, but to live it fully with humility as your guide. Picture this: the more we try to grasp onto things we can't control, the more they seem to slip through our fingers. Yet when we loosen our grip and accept what's beyond our power, something unexpected happens. We feel a sense of calm, even confidence. This is the paradox of control, and it's at the heart of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed that true freedom comes not from controlling the world around us, but from mastering our reactions to it. As Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." In other words, our resistance to accepting life's unpredictability often causes more pain than the unpredictability itself. Think about a situation where you felt overwhelmed. Maybe it was a sudden change at work, a relationship strained by misunderstandings, or even something as simple as being stuck in traffic. The frustration often comes from trying to force an outcome that simply isn't in your hands. But what if, instead of fighting against the current, you chose to flow with it? That's where the Stoic approach shines. By accepting what you cannot control, you free up your energy to focus on what you can: your thoughts, your actions, and your attitude. For example, imagine you're waiting for an important call about a job opportunity. The timing of that call isn't up to you, and worrying about it won't change the outcome. But how you prepare, how you center yourself, and how you respond when the call finally comes, that's where your power lies. This shift in perspective doesn't mean giving up. It means channeling your efforts into areas where you can make a real difference. It's about finding peace in the midst of uncertainty, and that's where true control begins. So, take a moment to reflect. Where in your life are you trying to hold onto something you can't control? What might happen if you chose to let go, even just a little? The paradox of control invites us to find strength in surrender, and in doing so, to discover a deeper sense of freedom. The Stoics knew this centuries ago, and it's a lesson that still resonates today. One of the most profound ideas in Stoicism is the concept of fate, the belief that certain events are inevitable, woven into the fabric of the universe. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest voices, put it this way: "Everything harmonizes with me which is harmonious to you, O universe. nothing for me is too early or too late, which is in due time for you. What he's saying here is that there's a natural order to things, and resisting it only brings unnecessary suffering. Instead of fighting against what's meant to be, the Stoics teach us to align ourselves with it, to flow with the current rather than struggling upstream. Think about it this way. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. You're frustrated, honking your horn and gripping the steering wheel tighter by the second. But does any of that change the situation? Not really. The traffic is out of your control. It's part of the fate of that moment. By accepting it, you can let go of the frustration and focus on what is within your control, like using the time to prepare for the meeting or simply taking a deep breath. This shift in perspective doesn't just reduce stress, it gives you a sense of peace even in the midst of chaos. So how do you view fate in your own life? Do you see it as something to resist or as a force to work with? The Stoics would argue that acceptance isn't about giving up, it's about recognizing where your power truly lies. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you free up energy to focus on what matters most: your own thoughts, actions, and responses. And that, in essence, is the heart of Stoic wisdom. One of the most transformative practices in Stoicism is the art of gratitude. It's a simple yet profound shift, moving our attention away from what we don't have and toward what we already possess. This change in perspective has a remarkable effect. It loosens our grip on the need to control every aspect of our lives. When we focus on what we're grateful for, we naturally feel more content, more at peace with the present moment. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca once wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Gratitude, in this sense, isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's a deliberate practice that roots us in the here and now. Think about it. When was the last time you paused to appreciate something small but meaningful? Maybe it was the warmth of sunlight on your face, the taste of your morning coffee, or even the sound of laughter shared with someone you care about. These moments might seem insignificant, but they're the building blocks of contentment. By focusing on them, we train our minds to see abundance rather than scarcity. And when we feel abundant, the urge to control every outcome diminishes. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment right now to think about what you're grateful for today. It doesn't have to be grand or life-changing. It could be as simple as a kind word from a stranger or the quiet comfort of your own space. This practice, when done consistently, can transform how you see the world and your place in it. Gratitude isn't just a tool for Stoics, it's a path to a richer, more fulfilling life, free from the exhausting pursuit of control. The Stoics teach us that attachment to outcomes is one of the greatest sources of suffering in our lives. When we pin our happiness on a specific result, whether it's landing that promotion, winning someone's approval, or achieving a personal goal, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Why? Because so much of life is simply beyond our control. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, put it simply: make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. In other words, focus on your effort, your intentions, and your actions, but let go of the outcome. Imagine pouring your heart into a work project, putting in countless hours, and then finding out it wasn't chosen or praised in the way you hoped. If you're overly attached to the result, this could feel like a crushing blow. But if you shift your mindset to value the process itself, what you learned, how you grew, and the effort you gave, you'll find a sense of peace regardless of the outcome. This is the essence of non-attachment. It's not about not caring, but about caring in a healthier, more balanced way. So where are you holding on too tightly in your own life? Is it a relationship, a career goal, or maybe even an image of how you think your life should look? Take a moment to reflect on what might happen if you loosened your grip just a little. By practicing non-attachment, you're not giving up on your desires, you're simply freeing yourself from the weight of expecting the world to bend to your will. And in that freedom, you'll find a deeper sense of calm and resilience, no matter what life throws your way. The Stoics had a profound understanding of impermanence, the idea that nothing lasts forever, not even our sense of control. This wisdom isn't meant to be discouraging. Instead, it's a call to embrace the transient nature of life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. It's a stark reminder that our time is finite, and clinging to things beyond our grasp only weighs us down. Think about it. How often do we stress over situations we can't change or try to hold onto moments that have already passed? This is where Stoicism offers a powerful shift in perspective. By recognizing that everything, our possessions, relationships, even our emotions, is temporary, we free ourselves from the burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. It's not about giving up, it's about redirecting our energy toward what truly matters. Imagine facing a significant loss, like the end of a job or a relationship. The natural instinct might be to resist the change, to cling to what was. But Stoicism teaches us to see this as part of life's natural ebb and flow. Instead of fighting the tide, we can learn to navigate it with grace, understanding that loss and change are inevitable. This doesn't mean we won't feel grief or disappointment, but it does mean we won't be consumed by them. So, how do you respond when life reminds you of its impermanence? Do you find yourself struggling to let go, or are you able to find peace in the fleeting nature of it all? Reflecting on this can help us align more closely with the Stoic ideal of living in harmony with the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. By embracing impermanence, we lighten our load and open ourselves to a more meaningful, present-focused way of being. Surrender often carries a negative connotation, as if it's a sign of defeat or weakness. But in Stoic philosophy, surrender is actually an act of strength, a deliberate choice to align yourself with the natural order of things. Seneca once wrote, "There is a certain art to letting go, and it takes courage to master it." This isn't about giving up or resigning yourself to failure. It's about recognizing what is truly within your control and what isn't, and then choosing to release your grip on the latter. Think about it. How much energy do we waste trying to force outcomes that are simply not ours to dictate? Surrendering doesn't mean you stop caring or stop trying. It means you stop fighting against the tide. Take, for example, the experience of being stuck in traffic. You can't control the cars ahead of you, the timing of the lights, or the flow of the road. You can either spend your time honking, stressing, and fuming, or you can surrender to the situation, accept it for what it is, and use that time to focus on something within your control, like your own mindset. Surrender, in this sense, becomes a form of liberation. It frees you from the frustration of trying to dominate the uncontrollable. Now, consider where this applies in your own life. Are there areas where you're holding on too tightly, trying to force an outcome that might not be meant for you? Perhaps it's a relationship, a career goal, or even a personal expectation. Surrendering doesn't mean you stop working towards your goals. It means you stop letting your happiness depend on outcomes you can't guarantee. It's about finding peace in the process rather than obsessing over the result. When you embrace this mindset, you'll find that surrender isn't about losing, it's about gaining the clarity and calm that comes from aligning with reality. Stoicism teaches us that while events in life are often beyond our control, there's one thing that always remains within our grasp: our choices. This idea is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, offering a profound sense of freedom even in the face of adversity. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic thinkers, put it this way: happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. The key is to focus on what we can control: our thoughts, decisions, and actions, and let go of what we cannot. Think about it for a moment. When life throws a curveball, say a sudden job loss or a disagreement with a loved one, you can't control the situation itself. But you can control how you respond. Will you react with anger and frustration, or will you choose to approach the challenge with calmness and resilience? This is where your power lies. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you're working on a project that doesn't go as planned. Instead of spiraling into frustration, you can choose to see it as an opportunity to learn and grow. Maybe you adjust your strategy, seek feedback, or simply take a step back to reassess. The setback itself is neutral. It's your choice that gives it meaning. So here's something to consider. How do you exercise your power of choice in your daily life? Are there moments where you catch yourself focusing on things outside your control, like other people's opinions or unexpected changes? What if instead you shifted that energy toward your responses and actions? This shift in perspective doesn't just empower you, it aligns you with the essence of Stoic wisdom, reminding you that true freedom comes from within. When life throws its inevitable challenges our way, how do we stay grounded amidst the chaos? This is where the Stoic practice of equanimity comes into play. Equanimity is the ability to maintain a calm and balanced mind regardless of external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. This simple yet profound idea reminds us that while we can't control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. Think about a moment when you faced an unexpected crisis. Maybe it was a sudden job loss, a heated argument, or even a global event that disrupted your daily life. In those moments, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, even paralyzed by fear or frustration. But equanimity teaches us to pause, take a deep breath, and approach the situation with clarity and composure. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. Instead, it's about acknowledging what's happening without letting it dictate our inner peace. Stoicism encourages us to see challenges as opportunities to practice resilience. For instance, imagine you're stuck in a traffic jam on your way to an important meeting. Instead of letting anger take over, you could use the time to reflect, listen to a podcast, or simply enjoy a moment of stillness. This shift in perspective doesn't change the situation, but it changes how you experience it. So how do you practice equanimity in your own life? Is it through meditation, journaling, or simply pausing before reacting to a stressful event? Whatever your method, the key is consistency. The more you train your mind to remain balanced, the more naturally it will come to you, even in the face of life's greatest storms. After all, as the Stoics teach us, the goal isn't to avoid adversity, but to meet it with grace and strength. Now, let's shift our focus to something truly within our grasp: self-control. While external events often lie beyond our influence, how we respond to them is entirely up to us. The Stoics viewed self-control as a cornerstone of freedom, not in the sense of controlling the world around us, but in mastering our own thoughts, emotions, and actions. As Seneca once said, "The greatest empire is to be emperor of oneself." It's a reminder that true power comes from within, not from trying to shape the world to our will. Think about those moments when an impulse arises. Maybe it's the urge to react angrily to a provocation, or to indulge in something you know isn't in your best interest. These are the moments where self-control becomes not just a virtue, but a tool for liberation. By choosing to pause, reflect, and act deliberately, we reclaim our agency. We stop being slaves to our immediate reactions and start aligning our behavior with our deeper values. Consider a practical scenario. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. The frustration mounts and the temptation to vent your anger is strong. But what if, instead of letting that frustration dictate your mood, you use that moment to practice self-control? By exercising restraint, you not only preserve your peace of mind, but also set a standard for how you handle future challenges. It's in these small, everyday choices that self-control transforms from a lofty ideal into a tangible practice. So, where in your life could you exercise more self-control? Is it in managing your time more effectively, resisting unhealthy habits, or staying calm under pressure? Reflecting on this can help you identify areas where you have the power to grow, to take charge, and to create the kind of inner freedom the Stoics championed. Remember, while we can't control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond, and that's where true freedom begins. At the heart of Stoicism lies a profound truth. While we can't control the world around us, we can always control how we respond to it. This is where the concept of virtue comes into play. The Stoics believed that living virtuously was the highest form of control we possess because it's something no one can take away from us. External success, wealth, or status might come and go, but our character, our integrity, remains entirely within our power. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply: what upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about things. In other words, it's not what happens to us that defines us, but how we choose to act in the face of it. Virtue, then, becomes the guiding principle for our decisions and actions. It's about aligning ourselves with what's good, true, and just, regardless of the circumstances. Take honesty, for example. Imagine a situation where telling the truth might cost you something, maybe a promotion, a relationship, or even just convenience. A Stoic would argue that choosing honesty, even when it's difficult, is a demonstration of virtue. It's a moment where you exert control over your own character, refusing to compromise your values for external gain. This kind of integrity isn't just admirable, it's empowering. It reminds us that we always have a choice, even when the world feels chaotic or unfair. So, how does this apply to you? Think about your own life. Where do you have the opportunity to act with virtue? Maybe it's showing kindness when you're frustrated, practicing patience in a stressful situation, or standing up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular. These small, everyday choices are where Stoic virtue comes to life. They're a reminder that no matter what happens around you, you always have the power to choose who you want to be. And in doing so, you reclaim a sense of control that no external force can ever take away. Regular reflection is like holding up a mirror to our actions, thoughts, and intentions. It's a powerful tool that helps us see where we might be clinging to control in areas where it's simply not ours to have. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that by pausing to reflect, we could align ourselves more closely with our values and let go of the need to micromanage every aspect of our lives. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This idea of self-examination is central to Stoic practice. It's about stepping back, taking stock, and asking ourselves, am I focusing on what I can control, or am I wasting energy on what I can't? Imagine this scenario. You've had a particularly challenging day. Maybe a project at work didn't go as planned, or someone said something that left you feeling frustrated. Instead of letting those emotions simmer or trying to force a different outcome, you sit down with a journal. You write about what happened, but more importantly, you reflect on your reactions. Did you respond with patience and understanding, or did you let frustration take the wheel? This kind of reflection isn't about criticism, it's about awareness. It helps us see patterns in our behavior and reminds us where our true power lies, in how we choose to respond. So, how might you weave reflection into your own routine? It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as setting aside a few minutes at the end of each day to think about what went well, what didn't, and how you handled it. The goal isn't to judge yourself, but to learn and grow. Reflection is a way of checking in, of making sure you're staying true to what matters most to you. It's about letting go of the illusion of control in the external world and focusing instead on what's within your grasp, your thoughts, your actions, and your choices. When we make this a habit, we start to see that much of what we worry about isn't ours to control, and that's where true freedom begins. So, what does it all mean? Recognizing that nothing is truly under our control isn't about resigning ourselves to helplessness, it's about embracing a profound source of strength and peace. By letting go of the illusion that we can dictate every outcome, we free ourselves from frustration, anxiety, and the weight of unmet expectations. Instead, we focus on what's truly within our power, our responses, our attitudes, and our choices. Stoicism teaches us that true power lies not in controlling the world around us, but in mastering our inner world. Life will always be unpredictable, filled with twists and turns we can't foresee. Yet, when we accept this reality, we can face challenges with resilience and clarity. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This wisdom reminds us that much of our distress comes from trying to control what's beyond our reach. When we shift our focus to what we can influence, our thoughts, actions, and reactions, we find a deeper sense of calm and purpose. Consider how this principle applies to your own life. How might letting go of the need to control every outcome change the way you approach challenges? How could focusing on your response to adversity bring you greater peace? Stoicism invites us to reflect on these questions and to practice acceptance as a form of empowerment. Thank you for joining me in exploring this timeless wisdom. If you found this video insightful, I'd love for you to subscribe and join our community as we continue to uncover the practical lessons of Stoic philosophy. Together, we can learn to navigate life's uncertainties with strength, clarity, and grace. Until next time, remember, true power isn't in controlling the world, it's in mastering yourself.